And we are live. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Bigfoot Odyssey's Researchers Reports. I'm Kerry Arnold. With me, as always, producer and co-host of the report, Miss Daniela Aiello. How are you, dear?
I'm good, thank you. I'm glad to see you back in one piece.
Yeah, that was something. Our guests for this evening, two, each in their own right, are great. I think collectively probably represent a huge cross section of what we know and believe to be true about the creatures we call Bigfoot. Mr. Mark Zasky and Christopher Noel, welcome, gentlemen.
Hey,
what's going on, guys?
Great to be here. I'm glad to. I too am glad to see you back in one piece after the wrecking ball of the virus.
Yeah, it was rough.
Smashed through your project.
I wish that would have been the only thing. It started, before that with a lot of personal stuff and Linda's sister passing, and it was just kind of a mountain of stuff that snowballed and continued. And yeah, feel lucky to be still sitting here, I think.
Did you have any confirmed activity?
I smelled them. First day we were there, walked 50 feet, going to set up one of the Zoom mics with the battery bank on it. Had a nice little setup, and Jeff Townsend and I were walking down there. Jeff was my security. I had him everywhere I went, and smelled them right away. Or smelled the same thing I had smelled in Florida, which is the urine, old stale clothes type of musk and pee. That smell. It was brief, but it was right there. And then, of course, voices and some yells in the distance, that just a lot of things that were just very suspicious. And I don't even know what everybody got. I got 14 hours worth of straight audio just from that Zoom I had set up out there. I haven't, who knows what's on it. I haven't looked at any of it. I haven't felt like looking at any of it. I've got $2,000 worth of sand discs right here with something on probably every single one of them. And I have no desire to look at any of it right now. So I'll get to it when I get to it. I hope no one's upset at me about that.
Just because you feel so kind of burned out?
I guess. I don't know. A little dejected. That obstacle. I don't want to sit here and harp on it. I really don't. It's hard not to sit here and harp on it, I guess. I'm glad to have both of you guys on here for sure. Mark, you're the first day, whenever you told me, hey, you need to look at Florida, and then we got shut down there. I probably should have just postponed, hindsight, Monday morning quarterbacking. But the guys had already left. There were already guys in Florida, and it was just too hard to leave them hanging. So we did what we could do, and that was it.
Well, it wasn't necessarily a bad decision because you didn't know at that time. You couldn't have known that you'd be shut down 2-3 different times. If you had been able to set up in your first alternate spot there, you could have had a successful expedition. So
maybe
not your fault.
Maybe I think we got better evidence out there in Collins than we would have gotten there, just because it's 160 something thousand acres. You got to spend a lot of time in a place like that to nail them down, unless we got lucky. And I mean, that's always a possibility. The way our luck was going, it just wasn't going to happen. That's for sure. Between rain, and we got rained out 2 days of just the 4.5 we were out there. 2 days of it. One full 24 hours collectively. It was raining, and really raining. So, got some drone footage of the area. We got some stuff. I think I can put it together and tell a little story of what we went through. But as far as evidence goes, the guys found some decent structures, very suspicious looking stuff. I found some suspicious looking stuff that I would say was hard to explain otherwise, but just the smells, things the guys heard, and who knows what we recorded. We don't know. I got to go through all this ton of audio and a lot of video. The guys went out several times without me. They were doing their thing. I was exhausted a lot of the time, just trying to keep myself busy and doing something. And I was either chopping wood. I chopped up a rich lighter pine knot for a good hour every day, just chopping up wood and getting all that and cooking dinner for everybody. I think, this time I'm going to work out a lot better logistically of what everybody's duties are going to be that are going to be on this, what everybody's responsible for. Not talking about little stuff like cooking, just, going to have the researchers, going to have the filming crew, going to have the guys, the medic crew, going to have the security, and that'll be their job. That'll be it. If something happens and they can fill in where elsewhere, then that's what it'll be. Just easier that way than the way we had it.
Were all the lines kind of blurry? Were they all too blurry this time? All the boundaries?
Yeah, and it's just simply because we didn't go to Florida. I
Yeah.
don't think anybody really knew what to expect, and then changing on the fly like that, it affected us. It affected all of us really, and not knowing really where to begin. We got good interviews, good intro interviews with everybody, and so at least people get to know who these guys are, and what we did was relatively anemic. Not much different than probably any other Sasquatch expedition video you'll ever see. I'll do my best to put together in a palatable way that people might enjoy it a little bit, but we'll see. I got Mark's ask you to fall back on. I always say, hey man, how do I do this? Tell me what I need to do.
You're coming to Florida eventually, man. We'll
yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it was just me and
while you were there, I got into my primary twice before they shut it down. They had it no camping, but they had it. You could be in there in the daytime, and I went in twice. Both times. First time, I saw the guy standing there and caught him on film. The second time, I sent you the pictures, and I sent you the pictures, Daniela, from the other one. So we're every bit as active as we were supposed to be when you were coming, and I'm confident that when you come back, we're going to get some really interesting shots of these guys, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And to me, that was the thing. Going from pretty much a sure thing of knowing where they were. It was all going to be on us regardless. To poke and hope. It kind of takes a little something out of you. Spirits got lifted back, going to the Collins area a little bit, and with what was going on out there, I talked to a guy, one of the people that live right there at the beginning of the lease road when we were coming in, just kind of let him know what we were doing, that we were going to be back there, and I'd already gotten permission and everything from them not to worry about it, and they were really nice people. Talked to him and I just asked him, strange stuff. You been hearing anything? He said, yeah, man, we hear it all the time. The knocking, usually around 11, 12 at night. We'll hear the loud knocks and screams and screeches that just make you go inside. So, and that's what they do. They just go in.
Sounds exactly like what we were talking about with the ranch owner down here in Florida.
Yeah, probably not to that degree. But I mean, I think they hear it enough to recognize it and know that it's not something normal. But there's no telling how long it's been going on there. The landowner saw them making me drunk, Chris. The landowner, he saw one there when he was 15 years old. Him and some of his cousins, they come running up the road and telling his dad, who I had the original agreement with, about the property before he passed away. They're a huge gorilla, standing by a tree, holding on to a tree, and all it was just standing there, and they all saw it and took off running, and I think they all knew something.
Yeah, they knew something
for a long time. I got a lot of clues out of them. They never would keep animals. There was never dogs or chickens or anything like that around. And that, and he had made mention about that to me one time, that just can't keep a dog or a cat around. And then Linda, she was home health nurse for a long time, was taking care of a guy not a mile away that had about 10 hunting dogs. And every time she'd get out of the car to go see him, they would just mob her, wanting to be petted and, jump up on you and stuff like that, not being mean or anything, just, wanting attention. Well, she goes back like every other month, to see some of these people who are on the little home health service. And there's one dog and he's not coming to her at all. And she asked him, where are all your dogs? He said, I don't know. They just ran off one at a time. Won't even come around people anymore. Like, yeah, they were dinner.
Yeah.
Exactly what happened to them.
Makes sense. Unbelievable.
But hey, we're out now, and what we got is what we got. I hope nobody's in a hurry to see it, because I'm just not in a hurry to look at any of it.
I know that feeling, man. I'm like that every time I get back from a long expedition. I'm like, I'll get to it,
Yeah.
It's exhausting, Kerry. It's exhausting. It's exhausting doing the job.
It is. I slept once everybody was left here, because we all came back here to the house and regrouped and did a little bit of filming here and cooked dinner, and just kind of, I was informed when I came in I have to hurry up and get back to Texas. So that's what I'm doing early in the morning before everything is completely shut down. So it was, once they all left, I think I slept about 12 hours and still feel a little
groggy.
Not quite myself.
Yeah, well, it's at least as emotionally exhausting as physically for you.
That's the thing. I think.
I mean, you were like adjusting your strides for this for so many months, pitching all your anticipation toward this week, and then you just got completely devastated and eradicated. No fair, I tell you.
It's not, and there's a reason for everything, I suppose. And looking back, and the further away we get from it, the more I'll be able to see probably knowing the guys' capabilities, what I can ask of who is going to come in really handy now. Who all will be going. Not everybody's going to be going back. We're not going to have that big of a crew going back. And like I said, everybody's going to have their own charge of what they're in charge of and what their responsibility is. And none of these guys have any issue with that. I mean, I don't think, they don't have to go, that's kind of how I see it. I love every one of those guys, but they know what they're doing. I think getting down to Florida and getting with Mark, getting the guys actually going out with Mark on where these guys like to be and hide, and then them going out and doing their thing. And then me and my crew filming, and not having any of my crew worried about going out and looking for anything, and then just worrying about catching these guys doing what they're doing and putting together a good film, something that's going to be really worth $1. Okay, Bomber, I appreciate that. I do. I really do. It's hard not to. I thought about just backing away for a little while and not even doing the show, but we'll see. I don't know. We'll see. It's that I just need to regroup, I guess, and get it back, because I just don't have it right now. It's just not in me.
You're kind of lucky that your two states that you're dealing with are Mississippi and Texas. Those are the two of the still unlocked states
Run by Republicans.
Is that right? That's what it is, probably. Yep. So you can still you have freedom of movement for another few hours before the man puts his boot on your throat.
Yeah, I just need to get out there, because oil prices are so low right now. I was a salaried employee, and now that oil prices are low, I have to be there on a ticket to get paid. So I haven't been getting paid the whole time I've been home, and that's been another stress and issue with everything we did and pulled out. I'm not trying to put my personal stuff out there, but it's been just having to deal with the funeral stuff was one thing, and everything else that came along after. There's a lot of things that had nothing to do with the expedition. It was just a downward spiral. I hate being a downer. I really do. It just
Debbie Downer.
I can hear myself, and I don't pity me, please. Don't even think about that. I'm okay. I'm good. I just don't feel it. not feeling it right now, and I need to get it back, and I'll get
Well,
it
look,
back.
hey man, look, man. What you did was you took a bad situation and you made something of it. So you got nothing to even be feeling bad about, really, Kerry. I mean, I understand the financial stuff, and I get that, man. Trust me. I mean,
I know you do.
and you put a lot out for that film. So hey, dude, kudos to you for going through it and still, trying to make something of it. You got
A lot of people did.
All you
A
got to
lot
do
of
is
people.
call, so.
A lot of people put out for that, expecting something, and then that made me feel really, not good. It's not a good feeling to know that we had all this support and people that put in to help do this, and I still have most of the equipment. I went ahead and gave a lot of the stuff away. Jeff Friends getting the camera set up. North Carolina Sasquatch Watchers. I talked to all those guys. They're getting it set up. Carl Gotro and Rachel are going to get the recording night vision binoculars, and the stuff that I said I was going to give away, I'm giving it away. 6 months. We do this again, I'll get it all myself.
Well, they could lend it back to the expedition for a week.
What's that?
Those guys who you donated this stuff to could lend it back to you for the week and whenever we go.
I mean, if they use it for their research and put something out there that is going to help push the subject forward, and even if it doesn't, as long as they try, that's worth it to us. We didn't want to gain anything out of this. Even selling the film was just to recoup a little of my money. I knew I couldn't make a lot of money off of this because it would have undercut what we were doing. And I didn't even want that to be an issue. Just to get my money back and break even would have been great. But even that wasn't expected. The whole thing eventually would have gone out on YouTube for free. The idea was just put $1 on it, and whoever wants to watch it will watch it. If I can get a little back, great. After that, we'll put the thing out. Whenever I get this thing completed, and it could be good. We might have something on there. I don't know. I'm not going to know for at least a week. I'm not even going to attempt to look at any of it. It's all, I got all those cards are sitting right there. And I'm just going to leave them right there. And I hope nobody faults me for that. So I'm going
to if you find that you want help, I bet you Mark or at least I would listen through it for you. And
of course.
Tell you what clips are exciting.
I know that.
You got any idea if you can remember any moments where you had some questionable stuff like smells or sounds?
Oh yeah, man. The guy we all heard voices.
If you shot footage into direction and it was daytime, obviously, and you need some help with that, you just send it off to me, man. I'll have it done in a couple.
Yeah, I think I may do some of the body cam footage that way. But as far as what was filmed with that camera right there, I'm just going to go through and look and see what all, because I didn't do all the filming. I had Malcolm Taffy was doing some of the filming, and Mark Kinchell was also doing some of the filming. So, but what the other guys got, Mark Newbill was doing some filming. He gave me his cards. So I'm going to go through that stuff. That's going to be the base for the whole thing. Anything else we get, I'll obviously cut in to go through all the audio, but I really want to go through most of that stuff myself, just so I can have a good collective of what I've got, and not having to try to have someone else interpret it. I know you guys are great. I mean, Mark, you do this every single day, but just for me personally, as far as the story goes, I want to be able to look at all of it, go through the whole thing in chronological order, and then decide how we're going to put it together, what's going to go where, what kind of, we got an intros done. I'm going to shoot. I'll probably do the outro myself. I'm not in any of it. You're going to hear my voice, but that's about it. It's all these guys and what they did. And they did their best, and who knows what they got. Like I said, we just don't know yet. They got some good stuff, and Mark, you know how this goes. You get home and you see a big booger standing there that you just didn't see at the time.
Yeah.
Editing's a funny place to be, isn't it? You have to be in the zone to do it. It's just one of those jobs that you do.
Oh yeah, no, I watched Mark Zaschke do it and just sit there for hours going through hitting tools and pulling things in and saying no and coming back and shortening and stretching and when it came to just putting a score in, if it needed just a little bit more, he would tweak a little bit of something here. He would throw a crossfade in there. You know, just watching that gave me the confidence to even try. I would never even attempted to edit 1 second of film if I hadn't watched Zasky do it back in 2016. So I probably owe you.
Still doing it.
Yeah, I know. But she talked about being in the zone, and I've seen you get in it, actually witnessing it, and you trying to show me stuff, and I'm just lost.
That's one horrific zone, I'm telling you.
No doubt, no. But hey, you know, the whole thing is what it is. Something I want to hear again. What was this you guys were talking about whenever I came in backstage earlier, Mark and Daniela? I kind of caught the last half. I thought it was great.
What did you ask me, Danielle?
I asked you about why the land, what's going on with the land. We got to talking about the land, didn't we? And the main reason why I think this is.
I think you know what I think it was we were talking about the paranormal thing and how I don't feed into it because, you know, boots on the ground, we haven't ever experienced anything like that. And then the craft came up that I saw because invariably people have seen that footage that I shot and they jump to conclusions, despite the fact that I've given very detailed representations of what we witnessed and that there were more than likely drones and a part of the management program. I mean, the conclusions that we came up to about those craft were that they were approximately 36 inches long and the size of the average drone, somewhere in that drone size. And they weren't using FAA lights. But what I was saying was that there's something going on in our one research area where they have it closed down and there's a pasture. It's very similar to the property that we were discussing with the rancher, Kerry, the week of, right? Before it all went to shit.
Right.
In the end, what's been going on in this area is we have what appears to be on the surface is a cattle ranch. And by all accounts, in 6 years, we haven't seen anybody do anything with the few cattle that are on the ranch. And the cattle on the ranch always seem to be in the corner by the research area, right? If you don't have to go on the ranch property to encounter individuals that don't act like cattle ranchers. They act like feds. We're nowhere near the cattle ranch, and we cross an invisible boundary. Obviously, they have sensors, possibly even satellite monitored cameras, which is no stretch because they have them in our other research area, and we have been confronted for being on camera by the FWC, who confronted us with pictures of my team in the area, right? So we know this is all real and it's happening, right? But my point is in discussing this, they have property that's adjacent to this cattle ranch shut down. No one's allowed on it. And Mel and I, over the years, have developed a theory that, you know, plus seeing the craft flying out of the cattle ranch onto the actual place where the research area, which is public land, we've come up with a theory that they're monitoring the Sasquatch. And in the patterns of examining what goes on here in South Florida with land trusts, which is essentially what most of these wildlife management areas are, they're public land trusts. The area is set aside at some point in history, right? And there's a large swath of forest or forest corridor or swamp or wetland pine prairie, whatever. More than likely a combination of 10 different micro ecosystems. It's set aside. The Sasquatch have a tendency to be in these areas. The deal is, though, when it's set aside as public land trust, most of the time it's locked down and the public isn't given access to it. The public has to rally support to gain access to that. And they have in the past in these areas. They've got to the point where they can use some of the areas, right? But what happens is they come in and they manage the area. They put a trail, they put signs, and they tell you not to go off the trail. So what's essentially happening is here in South Florida is land is being snatched up under the guises of protecting, right? Preserve your wetlands and all this stuff. And then as like when I was a kid, they were doing this. They set aside all these areas that I research in. Before, when I first got to Florida, none of these areas were off of out of access. You could go anywhere you wanted. Then in the 80s, they started grabbing up all this land and they made it public land trust. Well, as I'm getting older, I'm seeing chunks of this stuff that was set aside and no trespassing after they took it being sold off to developers, which is highly questionable. In fact, illegal. It's public land trust. But if all they have to do is post a small 1-inch ad in a newspaper saying that this land is going up for bid and blah, 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 and no one even knows, but that's the extent of the announcement they have to make. They have to put it in a newspaper. That's it. And the public never half the people that read the newspaper don't even, basically newspapers are selling what nowadays, right? Everything's on the internet, right? So it's like this thing. And then they sell off the land. Well, if the land had Sasquatch in it, what I was telling Daniela is basically we're witnessing these guys usher this species quietly behind the scenes into extinction by taking their habitat and continuing to pressure them into areas. We don't know how they're managing these species. I know for a fact, based on all of our data in the last 6 years, the way the authorities behave, just the general nature of what's off limits to the public, the signage in the areas, talking about dwelling areas, the craft that are examining the areas at night when no one's supposed to be in these areas, there's stuff flying around in there, taking pictures of the ground, all this stuff. We witnessed it, right? Being harassed by the authorities, confronting the Board of Environmental Review here in West Palm Beach, that there's something going on. I believe it's a management program. If it is, it's to manage these guys into extinction. It has to be nefarious because they're not bringing this up to the general public. We have no public oversight. We have no congressional oversight. They can do whatever they want to do with this land, with the Sasquatch, essentially. Until we have public oversight, until we have the power to say, we have questions and we want to know what's going on with the management program, they can do whatever they want to these guys. They can do it behind the scenes. And the saddest part of this whole thing is 99% of the 8.5 billion people on planet Earth don't even believe it's possible they exist, in spite of the fact that thousands of people like you, Chris, like you, Kerry, and like me and Daniela advocate on behalf of eyewitnesses and are, in fact, eyewitnesses ourselves. We're not being taken seriously. Behind the scenes, I believe, based on everything we're seeing, they are indeed ushering this species quietly into extinction. Why else would they not bring it up? In the end, the Sasquatch species ultimately represents the only competition for land and resources in the continental United States for man. They're our only competition. And if this comes out, the shitstorm over just that, the humanitarian issue, Homo sapiens cognatus, that's a humanitarian issue right there. That's a homo designation, man. That's human designation. Human rights apply. This, I believe, is the primary reason why all of this stuff goes on behind the scenes. We shared that documentation of the Senate hearing through the transcripts. You can plainly see there's a bill in place. We can argue interpretation of the bill with people, but I refuse to. It's pretty clear and concise that those gentlemen, those senators, brought amendments to the floor for an existing bill, and they even stated it, man.
The bill doesn't exist.
Yeah. And, we can't have conversations like this with the general public because people look at you like, because they watch the news. They watch Monster Quest. They watch Finding Bigfoot. They're not boots on the ground. They're products of man's construct, not reality of Earth. Earth reality is completely different, and opinions derived from man's construct are going to fit that narrative. The narrative that we push is based on solid concrete data from over 500 expeditions. And Christopher, I know now, because I saw the video you made about the Senate transcripts here in the state of Florida, that there's actually people who are on the same page. Before, I was thinking, man, I must be the only one pushing this side of this and the importance of it. I mean,
well, what you're describing, this kind of like parcel by parcel gobbling up, like Pac-Man eating of the land, probably would work in your area, but there's a lot of places that just have, like in Vermont, there's all these laws against development, so that can't happen. There's tons of space for our fellow species to kind of live, alongside us and not get swallowed up. But where you are, you must be worried that your research areas will be commandeered gradually, piece by piece.
They're doing it. We're not worried. We're watching it. We literally researched in one area for 4 years, and within 400 yards of where I captured the first Sasquatch I ever captured on film, and where this particular group stays, they built a shooting range. There's a shooting range there now. You know what I mean? And they have environmentalists and activist groups that are interested in trying to protect and save the area. But when it comes down to it, big money talks, especially here in South Florida. And in looking at, you know, the past and the patterns of what happens, like I said, they set aside property under the guises of protecting it. But if that generation of people that were all involved in the protection of that has grown up,
moved away or died or something,
yeah,
or forgotten about it,
yeah, now this generation does not know the importance of that parcel of land and what's going on, and it seems to me that the information isn't being passed on generationally as to the value of this property. And I believe, honestly, because I have actually literally filmed protesters in these areas when it comes down to harming animals, bears in particular, right? I filmed a protest of a bear hunt. They weren't even hunting bear in Palm Beach County because there are no black bear anymore. But in the end, they were protesting Rick Scott's canned hunt for bears, where they were using donuts to lure them in. And Rick Scott was governor back then. If these people had any idea that these hominoids are out there, I mean, you should have seen. I mean, me and Melanie made a movie of this, man. These people were almost going to blows with the FWC and county officials over bear hunting that isn't even happening in Palm Beach County. It was happening somewhere up in, you know, Rick Scott's private property. And I spoke to one of those people, and I was like, man, if you guys only knew what was going on right under your noses, the shitstorm that you would blow up over it. You know what I mean? And they don't understand. They don't know. You can't tell them because, like I said, they're products of the narrative that's, you know, mainstream on this subject. And you know, getting past that is the most difficult thing, you know, because there really aren't many people with that perspective on the subject that, you know, that know that it's, first of all, there's a difference between people who believe Sasquatch is real and people who absolutely know. I mean, when you see them, you know, that's just what it is. Right. I know because I've seen it, you know what I mean? And so for me, there are no questions or doubts on what needs to happen, because what I saw was the single most important thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And if more people could have that experience and see what I've seen, I can guarantee you the humanitarian question is going to come up. And that's why we do what we do, Mel and I, you know. So,
well, if they keep going the way they're going, okay, I have a little echo there for a second. It's going to become bogus and abated to the point where they're going to be having regular interactions with these creatures. They're going to push them to the point where they're going to start pushing back regularly. So then what? I mean, if they're studying these creatures, they have to know that there's a level of tolerance there. And we keep encroaching and encroaching. Don't you think that moment is going to come where someone's going to get really hurt? And then what? I mean, it's going to be out there. Well, we have to know this. This has to be a consideration.
I think those moments have been happening since the 70s, and I think that those creatures are removed. I think that's the bottom line. Here in the state of Florida, I don't think that there's any question about that. I've spoken to eyewitnesses that have seen the choppers, that have seen the containers, that had these things on their property, that had military type organizations or activity on their property, and that basically witness creatures being removed. I can provide you with witnesses to this. You know what I mean? So in the end, it's like, I think what happens is this is kept under the radar. And in situations like what we're in right now, this is a perfect opportunity, man. Everything is shut down. No one's allowed in these areas. I can't tell you whether there's military choppers or military activity in my research areas right now. I can tell you this. If I was running that show, I'd be out there collecting those specimens right now, because no one's there. And you can't do that 365 days a year for I don't know how long. There's no way you could get into these areas with normal conditions. This is a golden opportunity for nefarious activity from these management programs.
You know, I'm not
quite sure they're taking advantage of it.
I'm not big into conspiracy theories, but the suppression of the Sasquatch species is a large enough and important enough project for the powers that be that it would be plausible that they might do something like a pandemic for a few months just to have an opportunity to close everybody down and go through and clean out 90% of the species. But I don't think they'd be able to achieve that because, you know, our friends are just too good at what they do. And I think most of the time, 99.9% of the time, they don't get pushed and pushed and pushed and then fight back. They just keep fleeing and fleeing and fleeing. But sometimes you're right. Sometimes the clash occurs, and sometimes they send in a commando unit and take them out.
Yeah.
We've all heard those interviews, and you've seen them.
I don't necessarily even, you know, I don't think that this pandemic is about that. What I'm saying is these types of occurrences provide opportunities.
Yeah.
And people who are paying attention and have an interest in this kind of thing will also fully recognize that this is an opportunity. And so, you know, what am I going to find when I go back after this is over? You know what I mean? There are a couple of areas that I research in with Melanie that I would have to say, if I was running this type of a program behind the scenes with no one's knowledge, I would be in there now taking these creatures out of here because of where they're located.
Mm-hmm.
Sooner or later, where these one particular group that we're studying, that I've been providing you guys with shots over the last couple months here, there's absolutely no reason for those creatures to be there. And personally, I think it's the right thing for them to do to get them out of there, put them somewhere else, because where they're at, something's going to happen sooner or later. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I can't even, when we found the area and we found the tracks and we started having the, you know, the signatures and here they come, they're walking and all this, we were in a complete state of shock where this place is. And it's just too close to the public, man. You know what I mean? But again, we came in and slapped our little developments down in their habitat. And
That's
like
right.
everything else, the squirrels are still there. The snakes are still there. The deer are still there. The hogs, unfortunately, there's tons of them, but everything is still there. The gators, all that. And
The Squatch are saying the same thing. I couldn't believe how close these guys were to us.
Yeah, man.
That's true. And you know, if it does happen, and someone comes out of it unscathed, it's just going to be another Sasquatch encounter story.
Yeah.
If it gets brought out, that's all we'll ever hear about it is on a back channel somewhere where they went out and told their story or got it out there somehow. You know, speaking of, I'm going to be getting back on the road eventually with the Odyssey. Mark Zasky and I are doing some things this year together, but I got to have places to go. So anybody has a story they want to tell, an Odyssey, a researcher, more than likely, definitely going to do Mark Zasky. You got to get up and actually plans to do Christopher Noel's and got
wiped away by the planning, the long-term planning of this thing.
It did. A lot of things got put on the back burner, but we're going to get back to that. I don't know. Like I said, I'm probably going to step away for a little while. You guys, Daniela will be doing the research report. Y'all may not see me on here for a little while. I'm just going to.
You have to rediscover your
work.
Your squatching soul. You have to work and rediscover the love for the Squatch.
And
I know you don't love the Squatch. I know you've talked about that, but you love the pursuit.
Well, it's just the people, and I really have to thank everybody that got involved. You know, all the guys that made it, you know, to the trip, and the BLB guys for doing their little part in it. Daniela, for what you've done, of course. Mark, all of your guidance and help through this, you know, for the last 5 months, and everybody that's all the encouragement and just from everybody. I can't name everybody. I got everybody's name written down, but I can't do it right now.
My heart really went out to Brandon. He got caught in an endless Twilight Zone episode between airports.
Yeah, it was bad. It was very hard to acknowledge. Every time he put something down there, and I just looked at it. I didn't know what to say to him.
I know.
It felt that much worse.
He was in this miserably endless layover, or a couple of them, and then he had to fly back to Hawaii. And while he was in the midst of this odyssey, so to speak, he found out, I think, that Hawaii makes you isolate when you fly back into it.
14-day quarantine.
Even though he lived there just a few hours earlier. Yeah.
Came to the States.
God.
He flew to the States, and
That poor guy.
then going back, he's got a quarantine. As far as I know, he has to do that 14-day quarantine. And I mean, people are taking this whole virus thing seriously, as they should. You know, I think the deal is that it's extremely robust and highly
contagious.
older people. You know, so I think that's the whole deal.
Well, you know, half of the people in New York City or in the hospital right now are 50 or younger with this thing. That's been kind of a misinformation thing, and it's gradually getting eroded. It's not just old people. There's a lot of younger people who are on ventilators in critical condition.
Well, the survivability for people younger, you know, under 50 is
greater.
Is very high. You know, over 70, 80, I think those are the ones that are in a lot of trouble. But you know, it's a bad deal, this thing that's going around. Who knows what all is behind it? You know, we can sit here and speculate forever. And I don't know how much that has to do with Bigfoot, but it's what's going on right now. And
we just got so blindsided by it so suddenly. It makes you think that all your sense of security is just a tiny little stick structure. It could be knocked down by the next breeze, you know. We were taking everything for granted.
There's the flu kills so many more people every year. And, you know, we went through H1N1 back in 08, 09, or 2010, whenever that was. It wasn't this. We didn't go to these extremes, to these lengths. And it's almost, you have to wonder if it has anything to do with the administration we have in now and who we had in then.
A lot of politics going on right now, buddy.
I think it's just a whole lot more contagious too, and more lethal. We don't know if it's 2 times more lethal or 20 times more lethal because we don't have enough data. But it is a lot more contagious and spreads a lot more quickly than the flu.
Yeah, Linda they have 10 cases down there at Ochsner.
Really?
Wow.
And everybody's stable. Only I think they have got 5 on ventilators, and that's just as a prophylactic.
Oh yeah.
That's not.
Yeah, in Little Vermont, we had like 50 cases 2 days ago. Now we have 123.
I think the numbers for the deaths are a little bit, I'm not saying misleading, but people with underlying health problems. For example, my mom had cancer, but she died of cancer and organ failure. But the last thing that got her was sepsis, and sepsis is on a death certificate. Well, that's not what really was wrong with her. She had a whole lot of other stuff, and a lot of people, that are ill and dying of this virus. That's what's going on the death certificate, and it's looking. It shows you a different picture, and it's not really the case.
They could have gotten just regular pneumonia and died too, right?
Yeah, and then got sepsis. So the virus. So it's a little bit hard to tell who are just dying alone off that virus,
right? Alone
with no other underlying health issues. So
that's a good point.
It's it's hard to know, isn't it? But they've definitely got us under control now, and maybe priming us up for something. But I don't want to go down the conspiracy route. It's just a theory I have that there's something coming and we're being primed up for it.
It's too hard to know if it's being blown out of proportion or if it's a lot worse than they're saying.
Only in retrospect will we know, right?
Yeah, once we
I can give you a few numbers. I looked up on the CDC yesterday, and 28 million to 32 million people got the flu from October 2019 to March 14th. 28,000 died from that, and in 3 months, we have 1/10 the amount of cases, and not even 1/10 of the amount of deaths from the coronavirus. Influenza is absolutely wiping coronavirus up with numbers. And it's like, I have to question what's going on too. I think it's normal at this point. I'm looking at what's going on, and I think a lot of people are questioning. I talked to my brother today. Everybody he knows is like, what's really going on here, man? Because, they're capable of looking at numbers on a website. I mean, the CDC has it all right out there up front. Go to the CDC, look at the numbers. We're taking it serious, and we're trying to obey what's going on, you know, despite the fact that it's completely disrupted every aspect of our lives, you know, here in Florida. Like, you know, with the film and all that stuff, I was devastated, man. You know, I saw it coming. I told you a week before, I said, listen, man, you know, listen to what I'm saying. And I knew it. And sure enough, day of, they canceled it. And I'm like, man, you know, or they closed everything down. And looking at this, you know, the numbers aren't jiving. You know, it did just seem to hit, I guess. So I guess we'll know more in about 3 months. You know, and if 3 months, if the numbers are still looking ridiculous compared to influenza, I think at that point we'll be able to make a more rational judgment about how much politics were involved in this, and whether the media was blowing us out of proportion. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Go to the CDC website and look at it, because it's a shame that we cannot trust our media sources. Everybody has an agenda, you know, both sides. You can't trust any of them. And that's sad.
I will say this too. I looked up the last time that we got a loan. It was after the economy collapsed in 2008, and it was like $1 trillion or something then too. So seems to me it takes about 10 years for everybody to pay off their debt. And what are we doing right now? Borrowing $2 trillion more from them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Seems like about every 10 years, because it was 10 years before that when 9/11 happened, and we borrowed another $1 trillion from them. So I don't know. Federal Reserve's all over it once again.
Well, we lost 3 or 4 trillion to the wars, so that's where that went after 9/11.
Yeah, in the pockets of Halliburton.
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
I think if it was just a conspiracy or of our government, I don't think all these other countries would be having this lockdowns and stuff. I mean, India has 503 cases out of 1.3 billion people, and
I know, man.
They just locked down the whole freaking country. I think it's about the rate of increase, the spike, whereas the flu is just kind of a steady rhythmic thing that comes up every year, whereas this is much more dramatic in terms of its escalation and the way it takes over populations. But what do I know?
I think, like I said, man, I think in about 3 months we're gonna know for sure.
Good, that'll be good to know.
Yeah.
Well, I think we all know what we're told, you know, and for what we all do in this, we all see how it's affecting research and you know what we're trying to do, shine a light on this subject as much as possible, and it just keeps getting put out. So, well, I think
Sasquatch law, baby.
Yeah, it's Sasquatch law.
Bigfoot curse.
Sasquatch.
Yeah,
law.
well, I'm dejected too, and I wasn't even on the trip. I've been looking forward to it so much, and just like you, Mark, you know, you and Kerry are directly involved. I'm just a faraway bystander who was going to come for a couple of days, and then I had to pull out because of this damn thing. But like, I feel sort of hollowed out and dispirited and dejected, just like you guys do.
Yeah, man. I missed out. Like, I look at it another day and I was like, all right, well, you know, what really was going on was I couldn't wait for, you know, these guys from all over the country to come and experience firsthand what goes on with crypto reality in the field. You know, Kerry's been there and he knows, but there's a lot of shit taken about what goes on with crypto reality because we're very consistent in what we do.
It was going to be so good for you to have 12 corroborating witnesses.
You're damn right. And I can tell you right now, it's still, something's going to happen and we're still going to do something. But I was like, man, you know, because in the end, it was real important to me when Kerry, you know, when I really started to think about what was going on, I thought, okay, well, you know, I'm not big on networking in my research areas, but in the end, and Kerry will tell you that, you know what I mean? I'm just like, you know, stay the fuck out. I don't want you around. In the end, there's a study going on. Anything you do will screw that up. So I look at it and it's like, you know, but this was different. This far outweighed any of that. I was willing to drop it all. So, and I still am. And that's the thing, Kerry. So I spoke to you, what was that, earlier today. And I was like, man, don't even worry about it. You know, here's a picture of what's going on, and I sent you one. You know what I mean? And it's right there. You can see it plain as day on that one. You know? Yeah,
you didn't have to point that one out to anybody. You shouldn't right there. Anyway. If anybody wants to see it, it's on Crypto Reality on Patreon, probably right now.
We'll be here, and they'll be here, and we'll be ready.
Yeah, and all I can, how much I appreciate you for everything, Mark, and I want you to get something good from this. You and Melanie both, you've done so much with so little for so long that I was just kind of hoping that a little bit more light would get shown there, because you guys are there all the time, and for what it's worth, and as many places as we've been, and as many stories as we've heard from people, there's no place like Florida and what's going on down there. It's just it's incredible. I mean, who else do you know has the image of a Sasquatch face looking at you through the bushes? That's clear. That's clear. I mean, some of them blinking. I mean, crazy stuff that you guys catch down there. Nobody else. And I don't know. I do know a lot of that goes along with the links that you guys go to, what you've gone through, your failure.
5,000 hours in the field or whatever.
Yeah. That much time and looking into it and knowing what to do and where to look. I know that has a lot to do with it, but it just makes you wonder, what are some of these other guys doing? They could be doing the exact same thing, because you did it in Maine, you did it in North Carolina, the same thing that you did in Florida. Now, it wasn't as much as you got in Florida, because I think it's a lot more open space and they can stay away from you a lot easier.
Yeah.
But still did it. I mean, when you went to North Carolina, Mark, my goodness, man, that one thing I saw, that thing looked like the devil. That was
North
quite
Carolina's a trip, man.
what I had seen myself. I think
North Carolina's a trip. And Maine is a trip, and all that stuff's still going to come to fruition, man. It's just life happens and shit happens, man. I mean, what are you going to do? All I can do is be ready, and we're going to continue doing what we do as long as we can do it, and hopefully this thing will get over with in the next couple months, and we can get right back on track. The stuff we're talking about doing, and the people that you have involved now, and the places that we can go, the options that we have, the technology that's available, bro. It's just, if there's been anything holding us back here, it's been technology. We haven't been able to afford what's going on, despite the fact that we've tried to fund this, through the public, in order to keep the information and the study pure, and keep it out of the hands of people who weren't there and don't understand what's going on and have a tendency to manipulate their, the public opinion about what's going on. We've kept it pretty private. And so I look at this opportunity as a way to kind of bring more of what has been going on to the general public, and Mel and I are completely willing. So,
Mark, do you find that the activity level fluctuates in the summer, or does it stay pretty steady all year round?
No, it's steady all year round, though they do change habits with the thinning of the bush in those particular seasons, like in late fall. Like, we have green all year long here, so there's always a place for them. And they don't seem to leave these areas. Well, one of the things that we used to get all the time was, you film Sasquatch everywhere you go. Now, I don't think these people realize we weren't going anywhere but the same place every day. You know what I mean? So there's a 1,000-yard trail, and I walked it with my wife 6,000 times in 4 years. It's 1,000 yards. They hang out in this one area. Kerry will tell you, he's been there with us. And in that area, regardless of what goes on, they're always there. But in the seasons, they change locations and their behavior changes. You know what I mean? In the summer with the heat, I personally hate. I think it's the worst time to research as far as being in there and being a part of actual, the environment and everything as a human being. But it's just a gold mine for research, because they're easy to nail down when it's hot. I mean, they're covered in hair, and they got to stay cool. It's
and they must go in the water more, don't they? Or do they just kind of
the water? They do use the water. They use the water. One of the most confirming and enjoyable things that I got to hear in my entire research career was Kerry's encounter. When he said that thing had mud on it, I knew that what we were onto here in South Florida was right. That we were dealing with something that's so embedded in the environment that they'll lay face down in the mud with one side of their face out, waiting on the hogs to come down right on the side of this little trail, right at the water's edge.
Just like on a comforter with a pillow.
That's it, right? they belong there. Is
Yeah.
the way we put it. You know what I mean?
You know, to me, that's one of those things that makes it so hard for people that don't know or don't look into it. They just hear it. It's so hard for them to believe because they don't understand the nature of this creature. They think it should just be up walking around through the woods if it exists, and it's just not how they act.
That's not what they do, man. No.
Obvious. It's almost obvious to those that know that the answers to these questions are they're in there. They're on the ground. They're moving along the ground. You're not going to see one up kicking the dirt.
They're much more like spiders than they are like hominoids.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something else. They move like them. All 1,000 pounds.
I've heard that from many people. Yeah,
they move so fast. They're so strong. They're so quick that literally the amount of mass that's moving. When you see this, and I have seen it, it doesn't look real.
Yeah,
The speed and that much moving at that speed, it doesn't with the shape, the humanoid shape. You just can't fathom a humanoid moving like that.
Yeah, as freaked out as people are to see them in any case, they're just like 10 times more freaked out when they see that spider situation going on.
Yeah, all fours quadrupedal, man.
Yeah.
I've tracked them through that. I got to see a juvenile do that in Mayaka with my son, but it was fleeting. But I did see the quadrupedal going on, and it's. I don't know if it's because the juvenile wasn't as experienced as an adult doing it or whatever, but my son and I both agreed it was one of the most disturbing things we'd ever seen because it's not what you think it should look. It didn't look organized at all. It just didn't look right. Is the way.
Was it kind of like gangly and disjointed?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a situation where it fell out of a tree, and so we were there, and it was, in the spotlight kind of thing. So I think we freaked it out too. But at the same time, it was like you said, it was more like a spider. Yeah. Where you know how a tarantula will, and I know it has nothing to do with primates, but just that motion of a spider's leg, how it'll lift up kind of and go.
Yeah,
this thing was doing that, man. And
I knew somebody in Florida who saw one climbing head downward down a tall tree.
That doesn't surprise me at all, man. That doesn't surprise me at all with some of the stuff that we've seen. I mean,
just grabbing the tree with all four limbs and just effortlessly climbing straight downward head first.
Yeah, that's like Hollywood horror film.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? That's like The Exorcist when she comes down the stairs backwards.
I know. Like they have to add more horror to what they all already are. I mean, Kerry had the maximum horror, and it didn't even do anything like horror, I mean? except for the demonic voice.
Hey, I thought so at the time, but I started listening to Sasquatch Chronicles, and then I realized what happened to me was relatively anemic. I didn't feel quite so bad. You hear some of these stories, and they're just ridiculous what these people go through, and these are people you never hear of because they don't go back in the woods again. And I relate to those people absolutely. How I have managed to go back as much as I did, I don't know.
And some people you never hear of because they never came out of the woods after that.
Hey, we got about a couple minutes left. Y'all want to take some questions from the chat? You guys, you got any questions for these guys? Put them all in caps for us. Make them a little bit easier for us to find. We do appreciate that. And hey, big shout out. I just dropped my bottle. I'm sure you guys heard that. Big shout out to Dixie Dobbins. That's Jason Dobbins' 9-year-old daughter. She watches us religiously. And
hey, Dixie.
How you doing, Dixie? I know you're there watching.
Mm-hmm.
So
put your questions up, people. I've actually got a poem to read.
Oh, bring it.
Yeah, a lovely lady wrote into me, and I'm going to reply back to me.
Do we get to know who she is?
Yeah, it's Annie Ray Richardson, and she's both. I think she's subbed to both our channels, and she's been following the expedition and the updates I was doing, and she's put a poem together. So I thought maybe just to lighten the mood a little bit, you'd want to hear it.
Great.
So it's called Bigfoot Odyssey Trial Run by Annie Ray Richardson. It rained all night. They felt all right with Kerry heading home. 1 hour away. That's okay. It gives him peace of mind. The sounds outside are squatchy now. Jabber and some walking. As twilight falls, they linger near, listening to you talking. The BL boys recap the day, each in their unique, big way. We thank you for your humour and good vibes for all each day. Just stay that way, won't hurt a thing. Your style is amazing. Save recipes for Adam's book. It's sure to be a hit. For all the work he put on it, they should be tasty as heck. Landowner 2 dropped the bomb, fear filling his head, a yellow streak down his spine, too full of CV dread. Daniela is our base camp lead, allowing those who care to see the team in rarest form with Sasquatch over there. Go home, sleep well, it's not over yet. Try again. You will find you can unwind. Now take some mindful breaths. Your Odyssey lives on each day. With guests, we're in the loop. Also brave, it's all the rave. Your pot of cryptic soup.
Wow.
That's pretty cool.
That is awesome. Thank you.
Very awesome.
Thanks for writing that.
Well written.
That's inspiring.
It is. I'll send it to you.
I bet that made you feel somewhat better, Kerry. Maybe 10% better.
That does make me feel better. Absolutely. That's thank you for that. It's Miss Annie
Ray Richardson, yeah.
Ray Richardson. Thank you so much for that. That was
thank you.
well, hey, it's that time.
Mark is a black belt Squatch researcher. To me,
so for Noel, all the stuff I said about Mark, just for Noel's got some of the best personal real-time interaction you will ever see anybody have with the pine cone throwing thing.
Yeah, you know what? I feel like those things are so far in my rearview mirror that I just feel like it's happened to another person. I've just had such a kind of it's been a kind of a fallow period.
I understand, but you have a legacy. You got, to me, one of the best thermals out there. Mark Zasky and I put it on our show.
Yeah, you were supposed to blow that thermal out of the water last week. Damn it! This week, next time around, whether it's in the summer or the fall or whenever.
Yeah, we can't give up. I just got to step back for a little bit.
I know you deserve it.
From Arbo X, Mark, aren't Squatches afraid of gators?
I seriously doubt it. I seriously doubt that one. I think just in the evolution of like these wilderness areas, I think King Kong takes the lead on that one. You know what I mean? We see basically that they run the gators out of these areas. Yeah. In the one particular area, Kerry, you went in there with us. I think we saw a female, right? She was gone for 3 years. They nest in the same places, right? Well, she actually moved her nest. That's like almost unheard of for a female gator to do that. She had it down in their area when we first went in there, and she was gone for 2 years. Then you came, and we caught her, but she was on the outskirts of the actual habitat.
Right.
She was down past tree trees. Remember?
Yep.
So yeah, they displaced the gators.
Picking up. All you could see was eyes sticking out of the water, about that far apart. She was probably 5 footer, maybe.
Yeah, it was a little girl. But the man, the buck, is 12.5 feet, and I've seen him. I've tracked him in that area, and they don't come in that area anymore. So yeah, I lean to the side where I think the human primates probably do away with them, chase them off. You'd be surprised how you can run a gator off. You wouldn't. It's like you get to thinking that they're ancient predators, and they will ambush your ass quick in these areas that we research in. Somebody 4 months ago got his leg almost torn off, and he wasn't even near the water. It was a gator transiting from one water source that dried up to the next water source. He just happened to be in there hunting with his wife. This thing came out of the bushes and nailed him. So these things are all through there, but in this particular spot, he won't come back. And that's kind of unusual. Once a big male like that has his female, they're in there every year in the same exact spot, using the exact same nesting ground,
Yeah, well, extenuating circumstances.
Yeah.
Hey, great show. So glad you guys joined us. Danielle, I don't know what you're going to have Saturday. Are you going to have a researcher report Saturday?
Yeah, if one of the crew want to come on.
Okay.
Any of the crew, I kind of thought we'd be still out there and hadn't really planned, but
yeah.
I'll sort something out.
Absolutely. I'm going to take a little time off myself. So
Okay.
Good.
thank you so much, Mark Zash, Christopher Noel. You guys are awesome. I'll be in touch. Absolutely.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for having me too, man. Appreciate
Yep.
you guys.
Appreciate you too. And
Thanks everybody again. Y'all have a good night. This Saturday, 7:00 p.m. Central, we're gonna have some of the Expedition guys on here with Daniela. So I hope you guys enjoy that. And y'all have a good night.
thank you,
Talk to you
Kerry.
soon.
Good night,
Later,
everyone.
guys.
Batteries.
Bye, y'all.
Are we on still?
Yeah.
We're still on.
Well, let's get off.
It did this last night.
Oh yeah,
Just
you can't get off.
it went off eventually. Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
Oh, that's weird.
Mm.